The morning of Henry Whitmore's will reading began with polite silence and hidden smirks. The mahogany-paneled conference room inside Whitmore and Sons Financial was filled with leather chairs, old portraits, and even older grudges. At the head of the table sat Gregory Klein, Henry's longtime estate attorney, fingers steepled and eyes darting across a carefully curated list of guests. Daniel Whitmore, Henry's only son, leaned back confidently in his seat, arm draped across the back of his new wife's chair. Marissa, blonde, tight-skinned, and dressed in a white sheath dress as though attending a cocktail party, not a legal proceeding, kept glancing at her phone, already bored. They thought it was a formality. Daniel had assumed everything would fall in place like dominoes. His name on the mansion, the yacht, the accounts. After all, hadn't he always been the heir? The golden boy. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that the man who used to love him unconditionally had spent the last year of his life in quiet reckoning. And Henry Whitmore hated what he saw. When Daniel first met Amelia, they were just kids in grad school, him in finance, her in public health. She wasn't flashy, but she was kind. The kind of kind that wasn't for show. She stayed up with his father through 2 surgeries. She balanced hospital bills, took late calls, made sure Henry always had fresh fruit when the doctor said his potassium was low. But by year 7 of their marriage, Daniel changed. He began working later hours, buying suits 3 times the price he used to, saying Amelia didn't understand his world anymore. When Amelia caught him texting Marissa, a 27-year-old junior executive at his firm, he didn't deny it. He simply shrugged. "I deserve to be with someone who makes me feel alive again," he'd said, as though Amelia was a faded sweatshirt. The divorce was fast, brutal, and humiliating. Daniel's lawyer dragged out Amelia's mental health records from therapy she'd undergone after a miscarriage. He implied she was unstable. Daniel kept the penthouse, car, even the dog. All Amelia got was her maiden name back. Gregory Klein cleared his throat. "I will begin by reading the most recent valid version of Mr. Henry Whitmore's will, dated 8 months prior to his passing." Daniel exchanged a quick look with Marissa. That was around the time Henry's health had taken a turn. The old man had been stubborn, refused to move in with them, chose instead to remain in the estate with round-the-clock nursing care. Gregory continued, voice steady. "To my son, Daniel Whitmore, I leave." Daniel's chest puffed slightly. "My silver cufflink collection, my vintage golf clubs, and the contents of my study library." Daniel blinked. "That's it." Gregory didn't flinch. "Please allow me to finish." The room grew still. "To Marissa Whitmore," Gregory added, not even lifting his eyes, "I leave nothing. We never got to know one another." A sharp inhale came from Marissa. She looked to Daniel in disbelief. "This is a joke, right?" But Gregory was already moving on. "To Amelia Reyes, I leave the controlling shares of Whitmore and Sons Financial Group, my Aspen property, and the balance of my estate trust, to be administered solely under her name and authority." The words hung like thunderclouds. Daniel shot up from his chair. "What? This is absurd. She's not even family anymore." Gregory reached calmly into his briefcase. "There's more." He pulled out a flash drive and inserted it into the sleek conference room monitor. "I've been instructed to play a video message." The screen flickered and there was Henry, frail, eyes sunken but gaze sharp. He was seated in his favorite chair by the bay window of his estate, the ocean behind him. "If you're watching this," Henry began, "then I've finally shut up for good. And for the first time in this family, someone else is going to get the last word." He smirked. "Danielson, I loved you more than anything. But somewhere along the way you stopped being someone I could recognize. I didn't leave you out of my will to punish you. I did it because I saw the man you chose to become." He coughed, a weak, rattling sound. "You took the family name and used it to destroy a good woman. Amelia stood by me when I was a bitter old fool who thought I'd live forever. She didn't ask for recognition. She just showed up. Every time." He looked into the camera. "So no, this isn't revenge. This is restoration. My legacy will be handled by someone who actually has a soul. The screen went black. No one spoke for a long time. Then Daniel slammed his fists on the table. You think this will hold up? This will was changed under duress. He was senile. But Gregory calmly opened another folder. That brings me to the next matter, he said. There is a notarized psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Susan Harper, conducted just days after the will was signed. It confirms Mr. Whitmore was of sound mind and body. Daniel paled. Over the next week, chaos ensued. Daniel filed for an emergency injunction, accused Gregory of malpractice, claimed Amelia manipulated his father. He even tried to get a court order to freeze the estate's assets. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Henry had anticipated this too. Amelia met privately with Gregory the day after the reading. They reviewed a confidential document titled Addendum B, not shown during the reading. Inside was a single page. A log of asset transfers, already executed 6 months before Henry's death. The Aspen property, already in her name. The trust fund, moved offshore under her authority. The public reading was a formality. The power had already shifted. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She stood quietly in the mirror of her modest townhome, clutching a small velvet box that Henry had left her privately. Inside was a gold bracelet, one she had admired once but never asked for. Alongside it was a handwritten note. To the daughter I never had. Use your voice. The world needs to hear it. Tears welled in her eyes. For years she had believed that silence, dignity, and endurance were enough. But now, with Henry's final word behind her, Amelia realized some truths need to be spoken aloud. Within 48 hours of the will reading, Amelia's name was splashed across financial blogs, tabloid headlines, and legal Twitter feeds. Ex-wife walks away with empire after billionaire's death. Gold digger or guardian angel. Internet split on Whitmore will war. Daniel and Marissa had launched a media blitz, painting Amelia as a manipulative ex-wife who preyed on an old man's vulnerability. Daniel appeared on 2 business talk shows in the same Navy suit, claiming his father was out of touch with reality in the months before his death and had been heavily medicated when Amelia came back into his life. But the real Amelia never even responded. She didn't do interviews, didn't issue a statement. She was busy learning how to sit at the head of a boardroom table. The Whitmore and Sons executive board, 6 men and 1 woman, all over the age of 55, stood when Amelia walked in. She wore a black pantsuit, minimal jewelry, no entourage. But there was something about her presence that silenced the room. Half of them expected her to freeze. The other half expected her to smile politely, say she was stepping aside, and hand the company over to Daniel. Instead, she opened a folder. I know many of you assume I'm here because of sentiment, she began, voice calm but firm. But Henry didn't make this decision with his heart. He made it with his eyes open. He left me a file. Every board member's performance metrics, every misused fund, every outdated contract. She looked around. I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to protect what he built. And I plan to do it better than the man who thought firing people by text was efficient. Someone coughed. Another man looked away. Are there any questions before I assume my duties as acting CEO? Silence. She nodded. Good. Let's begin. Daniel wasn't done. He filed a formal motion to contest the will in court, claimed undue influence, and presented a few emails between Amelia and Henry, implying she'd manipulated him by talking about her hardships and financial struggles. Emotional extortion, Daniel's attorney called it. But Gregory came prepared. At the preliminary hearing, he presented video logs, recorded by Henry himself during the last year of his life. In each video, Henry documented his symptoms, medications, interactions, and state of mind. He even read aloud entries from the day's newspaper to demonstrate his cognitive clarity. And then came Exhibit F, a handwritten journal entry by Henry, dated 3 weeks before his death. Daniel thinks I don't notice his visits come only when he wants something. Emilia brings books. Laughter. She reminds me I was a father before I was a businessman. I made her a promise years ago, and I intend to keep it. I owe her that. The judge didn't throw the case out, but the courtroom shifted that day. The public's sympathy slowly tilted. Emilia received a message one afternoon from an unknown number. It was a voicemail. I know we haven't spoken in years. This is Angela. I was Henry's night nurse the last 8 months. I think there's something you should have. Something he wanted you to see. They met at a quiet diner near the edge of the city. Angela was older than Emilia remembered, with soft eyes and a nervous smile. She handed over a worn leather-bound book. His final journal. He made me promise to give it to you, only you. Said it wasn't for the lawyers or the board. Just for your heart. That night, Emilia sat cross-legged in bed, reading the words of a man who'd come to see her as his real family. In the back sleeve of the journal, tucked almost like an afterthought, was a folded letter. It was addressed to the court. Gregory reviewed the letter the next morning. His jaw tightened. This could shift the entire tone of the case, he said. In the letter, Henry detailed a hidden transaction from 5 years earlier, when Daniel had illegally used the family foundation to fund a personal property deal in Miami. He'd covered it up. No one had caught it. But Henry had known. And he'd kept the proof. Gregory filed a motion to include the letter as evidence of Daniel's misconduct, not only as a trustee but as a son who betrayed fiduciary and familial trust. The court scheduled an emergency hearing. Daniel's legal team scrambled to suppress the document, but the judge allowed it, stating that if the deceased left clear, notarized evidence of wrongdoing, it must be heard. And then Emilia did something no one expected. She took the stand. She wore a navy dress. No makeup. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered. Your Honor, she said. I didn't ask for this. I never imagined I'd be back in this courtroom, facing the same man who took everything from me once before. He paused. I came here today not for revenge, but for truth. I was told by Henry that one day I'd have to speak plainly. So I will. She turned to Daniel. You used me. You discarded me. And then you tried to erase me. But your father saw what I carried, even when you didn't. She held up the journal. And he left me the burden of truth. You didn't just fail as a husband. You failed as a son. The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded once and allowed the letter into the official record. Daniel's lawyer whispered something urgent to him. He looked pale. Later that night, Marissa cornered Daniel in their hotel suite. You said this would be clean, she hissed. You said you had this under control. Daniel was pacing, shirt unbuttoned, drink in hand. They're going to crucify you in court, she said, eyes cold. And I won't go down with you. Daniel stared at her, stunned. What are you saying? I'm saying my prenup is airtight. And if you drag this out, I'll testify for her. His glass dropped, shattered. You wouldn't. She didn't blink. I already called her lawyer. Gregory received the message the next morning. Daniel's legal team was offering a settlement. Quiet one. Daniel would drop the case. In exchange, Emilia would agree not to pursue criminal charges for the foundation embezzlement. They'd call it a mutual resolution. Gregory asked Emilia what she wanted. She looked out the window for a long time, remembering the years she spent picking up the pieces of a life Daniel shattered. The nights she cried alone. The therapy. The self-doubt. The humiliating articles. And then she said, no deal. We go to court. I want the truth on record. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, former employees of Whitmore and Sons, curious onlookers. Everyone had shown up. Not just for the legal drama, but for what it symbolized. The fall of a privileged son, and the unexpected rise of the woman he discarded. Daniel sat at the defendant's table, stiff and silent. His new attorney, his third, kept checking notes, whispering nervously. Across from him, Emilia sat beside Gregory. Her presence was different now. Still quiet, still composed, But this time she wasn't invisible. She wasn't surviving. She was commanding. The judge, a woman in her 60s with a reputation for zero tolerance, called the courtroom to order. "We are here to finalize the challenge to the will of Henry Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore's son, Daniel, has alleged undue influence. Ms. Amelia Reyes has submitted new evidence indicating prior misconduct by the plaintiff. The court will now hear final statements." Daniel's attorney stood first. "We do not contest that Mr. Whitmore changed his will. We contest the reason. The defense claims it was out of love or justice, but we contend it was manipulation. Ms. Reyes had access to Mr. Whitmore during a time of cognitive decline. The law exists to protect individuals from undue emotional pressure, even if it's subtle." The attorney clicked the remote. A slideshow appeared. Images of Amelia entering the estate, helping Henry walk down a hallway, sitting by his bed. She inserted herself into his final months, and then, miraculously, became sole beneficiary of a billion-dollar legacy. He turned to the judge. "If this court allows such manipulation to stand, it opens the door for emotional coercion to masquerade as kindness." A few murmurs echoed through the room. Then Gregory stood. Gregory clicked a new slide, one showing a scanned handwritten letter. "This is Henry Whitmore's final entry in his private journal, authenticated and submitted as evidence. It reads, 'They will say she manipulated me, but I've never been clearer. My son chose greed over family. Amelia never asked for anything. I gave it to her because she reminded me who I was. Before the money, before the deals. I choose her not because she wanted something from me, but because she gave everything when I had nothing." Gregory turned to the judge. "We also have Nurse Angela's sworn affidavit, and surveillance footage showing Mr. Whitmore requested to amend his will, without Amelia present. He made these decisions alone." The judge looked down at her papers, then up at Daniel. "Does the plaintiff have any final remarks?" Daniel stood. "Type. I don't care what's in those letters. That company was built for me. She was just someone I used to be with. She doesn't deserve it." Silence. The judge's gaze didn't waver. "You've made your position clear. Court will recess for 1 hour before I deliver my ruling." Amelia stepped outside into the back courtyard of the courthouse. It was quiet, just the wind brushing through sycamore trees and the faint sound of heels clicking on stone. She sat on a bench, watching 2 birds fight over a crust of bread. How ironic, she thought. So much of her life had been about taking crumbs. From Daniel, from the company, from society's expectations of what a woman like her deserved. But Henry had handed her the whole loaf. Not because she asked, but because she showed up when it mattered. Behind her a voice spoke. "You don't have to go through with this." It was Marissa. "I told him to settle. He wouldn't listen." Amelia turned. "Why are you here?" Marissa hesitated. "Because he tried to destroy you, and I helped. I believed everything he said about you. Until I became you." Amelia said nothing. Marissa's voice cracked. "When this is over, walk out of here and never look back. You're not one of us anymore. And that's a good thing." Then she left. Everyone stood as the judge re-entered. "In the matter of the Whitmore estate," she began, "this court finds no evidence of undue influence. On the contrary, the decedent appears to have taken extensive steps to ensure his wishes were carried out precisely and legally." Daniel's jaw dropped. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "this court finds credible evidence of financial misconduct by the plaintiff during his tenure as a foundation trustee. These records will be forwarded to the district attorney for review." A gasp spread through the room. Daniel turned to his attorney, frantic. "What? They're referring me for criminal charges." The judge didn't even look up. "You may sit." Then finally she looked at Amelia. "Ms. Reyes, this court recognizes your rightful inheritance and affirms your legal control over all assets specified in the Whitmore will." Bang of the gavel. It was over. Weeks later, Amelia sat at the head of the conference table in Whitmore Tower. She was reviewing plans to create a new charitable division, the Henry Initiative, focused on education for single mothers, underprivileged youth, and family advocacy. A young intern knocked on her door. "Ms. Reyes, there's someone downstairs asking for a meeting." "Mr. Daniel Whitmore." She looked up slowly. "Send him away. He said he just wants 10 minutes. He paused. "Tell him. The woman he used to know is gone. And the one standing here doesn't owe him anything." The intern nodded and left. Amelia exhaled, picked up her pen, and kept writing. Months later, a plaque was unveiled at a new community center, built on the lot that used to house Daniel's luxury condo project in Miami. The project he stole from the foundation. The plaque read, "The Henry and Amelia Center for Family Restoration. Legacy is not what you leave in your will. It's what you leave in others." Amelia stood in front of the crowd, holding back tears. She didn't need applause or revenge. She had something better. A life no one could take from her again. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.